Mental health is a huge problem with Gen Z. Why? This is our attempt to find out.
We conducted a survey with our whole class of one word that has made them depressed in their life. Here's the results. We also interviewed teachers who work with Gen Z all day and see how they live. Here's the results from that. How do you think Gen Z is affected by mental health?
Gen Z is being hugely impacted by mental health, although I don't think there are lots of new necessarily mental health problems. I just think as a society we're doing a better job at figuring out what they are and noticing them in people and documenting that they have them. So again, I don't think there's a massive outbreak of new mental problems as much as we're just as a society doing a better job of recognizing them and trying to help people. So do I think Gen Z is being impacted more than other generations? Yes, but not because of new. I just think they're more aware now of the issues that are possible, and I think they're doing more. If I think Gen Z is doing anything differently, I think they're dealing more effectively and more actively with mental health problems, and that's because again they're simply documented more. So Gen Z is dealing with a lot more in terms of dealing with mental health issues, I think, than any other generation before, and I think that's important to note.
I think on a daily basis, I see students who are unable to make sense of their feelings, unable to process what they're going through. On any given day, I have students whose heads are down, who have been up the night before and have not had any sleep, and because of whatever they've got going on in their lives, being in a classroom, trying to make sense of, in my class, English content isn't going to happen. There's too much going on emotionally and outside of their lives for them to be able to function on a day-to-day basis. So we've got students who, for example, like are crying and I don't know how to help. Students who cannot rein their emotions in if they're supposed to. Students lashing out, anger. I think what I see is a very deep spectrum of emotions, whether sadness or happiness or whatever it might be, anger. I think everything is heightened on a degree that I don't know that I've seen in the past, that I've been teaching now for 8 years. So I think I've just seen sort of that progressiveness getting worse.
I don't think so. Maybe I'm not doing enough either. I'm learning and trying to understand, and I think because we're hearing so much and learning so much, and there's so many kids who seemingly suffer from depression, anxiety, it seems like a really big problem. And so I think we're kind of at the groundwork right now. I don't think enough has been done. I think we're trying to understand and then come up with solutions. I think more can be done and should be done. I don't know what it all is, but I think it can happen at school, finding places and students be able to identify and articulate what's going wrong with them as a good starting point, and then giving them safe places to go to be able to talk instead of just online. I think they need to have more connections with people that can support them. So my answer is no. I don't know all the answers, but I don't think we're doing enough.
Do you think authority members are doing enough to help Gen Z's mental health?
I think when it comes to mental health, I think your question is one of those things where I think we can always do more. Do I think we're doing enough? But speaking as an authority figure, I suppose, probably not. Although I don't think it's always the authority figure's fault. Usually when you talk about teachers or administrators or parents, typically they have lots of things on their plates. Besides the mental health problems of their charges, but that doesn't mean they shouldn't address it at all. But could they do more? Of course they could. Do I think they're doing more than previous generations? Of course, but that doesn't mean that they're doing enough. So I think more people, I think more efforts should be put towards awareness. I also think we should do more with diagnoses. Again, a lot of times Gen Z members are diagnosed, but they choose to reject the diagnosis for any number of reasons. That they don't want to upset their parents, or they feel like the doctor's wrong and their own opinion is stronger. So again, are they doing enough? No, I think all of us could do more when it comes to helping out with mental health problems as an authority figure or as someone who's suffering from a mental health problem. Again, I think there's always room to do more.
I think we want to believe that we are. I think that we've gotten to a point where we say the word mental health and we have maybe people in place that we want to believe are really helping students. And we do definitely what we can. I think it's just, I don't know if we are equipped well enough to handle the amount of mental health issues that we're seeing. So, in our school, for example, we've got 3 counselors, particularly one that deals with mental health issues. But when you look at the sheer numbers of how many students we have and the 4 people that are left to handle those issues, it's not enough. And I think that in our school especially, we have people who are advocating for more support, more services, more programs to handle the issues that students are faced with. Unfortunately, we also come to a wall with our funding sources and exactly where can we draw money from to be able to hire another person. We get into a lot of red tape. If we look at just the numbers of a lot of our funding allocations are decided upon by we've got X amount of students, so given that amount, then these are the number of people that we can hire for certain positions. So I don't think if we don't have the right supports, it isn't because we don't care, or is it because we don't want to support students. I think unfortunately a lot of it comes down to money. Decrease in funding for education, this should be something that is a priority. And again, we want to believe that it is, and we want to make it a priority, and whether or not that's happening, I think is really a more debatable issue.
I think Gen Z is affected by mental health in a lot of ways. I think because they're digital natives, they have always been connected to technology, and so that I think contributes. One, they have less personal interactions with people, so some people can feel isolated. Also, I think they spend less time outside, and the vitamin D and all of that factors together. So I think there's like a sense of loneliness and like chemical issues happening because of being inside all the time. But also, I think they're just more aware. I think people have been depressed and anxious for a long time, but Generation Z is uniquely bold, and they talk about how they feel. And so they reach out more, and they speak up for it. So I think there are some things that are negative factors that they have to face, but also some positives in like their awareness and advocacy for mental health change.
We also interviewed 2 people from Kentucky higher education, Che Ritter and Todd Stephenson. They both have connections to Gen Z with their jobs in some way. Here's the results from there. Can schools do more to help mental health, and how?
Yes, I think providing more counseling for different reasons, and also helping teenagers especially remove the stigma of what they think mental health problems are.
Can you explain what a money pot is?
So what I do is determine the amount of state funding that goes to public schools, and there's a local pot of money which is generated by local taxes, and we don't determine how it's spent. That's why you have a local board of education that determines through their budgeting process how much is spent on transportation, on salaries, on Chromebooks, etc.
Is there a specific money pot for mental health reasons?
Not at the state level, but there should be at the local level. Obviously, they pay counselors and other programs like that, but they determine that locally.
How much money do you control that goes to schools?
About $3 billion.
How do you think Gen Z is affected by mental health?
I think they're affected like everybody else, but for different reasons. I think social media plays a bigger role now than it did. I think there's different stressors on any generation. As you get older, you recognize that a little better, but when you're a teenager, it's harder to see what's stressing you and what causes you to have anxiety or mental problems.
What is your job, and explain what you do?
I'm a branch manager for the Department of Education in Frankfurt. I manage school funding, state funds, and I help calculate the local tax calculation, which helps determine how much local tax funds school districts get.
You make a scholarship book. Do you think a book like that could put pressure on a kid?
I think just trying to get into college can put pressures on kids. For years during high school, you have to go through so many hoops and jumps to try to get into college, ACT, SATs, trying to get the right scores and everything. And then I hope my book doesn't put pressure on people. It can be overwhelming to look at, but it has a lot of information about free money that students can get. So I think maybe initially, yes, my book can put pressure on you, but hey, once the money starts rolling in, we hope all that goes away.
Do you think mental health is worse for kids now than it was when you were our age?
Yes, definitely. With the internet and never being able to get away from all the things that go on at school and all your friends are doing, is definitely different from when I was your age. When I came home, it was like a different world. I didn't have friends to talk to or constantly be getting in touch with unless I picked up an actual landline phone and called somebody.
How do you think schools deal with the problem of mental health?
By providing counselors for the students to talk to throughout the day, and providing groups and clubs so students that have the same interest can get together and have some face-to-face time, getting them away from electronics and actually speaking to people.
How do you think mental health is affecting a person near you that is a Gen Z member?
Well, I think it can affect them in many ways. The cancel culture that we have today, no one is allowed to say anything that offends someone. And the sad thing is, everyone is going to say something that offends someone. So if you take that to heart about another person's opinion, I think it could make your times rougher. Sometimes it just takes a little bit of growing up to realize what other people say, what other people think. It doesn't affect you unless you let it affect you.
Lastly, we interviewed a variety of people, Gen Z and people who have connections to Gen Z, such as teachers or parents or people from KEHA, and why they think Gen Z has so many problems with mental health.
What is the largest cause of mental health on Gen Z in your opinion?
I think it's the feeling of being alone.
Family, your friends.
Parents have kind of picked up the cell phone and haven't put it down. Kids see that, they model that behavior.
Counselors. A large population that feels misunderstood.
And not understood.
I think just stress.
People.
And I think for a long time, adults in particular have really talked around and ignored.
A lot of it starts at home.
Who's bullying someone else.
Avoidance of physical or face-to-face social interaction.
My grandmother used to say to compare is to despair.
For me, it was family.
Social media. But
School.
feeling alone.
But I think like the outside factors that might trigger those people that have mental health issues such as depression or anxiety.
Social media and the pressure that kids put on each other
Bullying.
when they're not face to face having conversations.
Have something going on at home.
Kids not knowing how to deal with certain things.
Regardless of generation, I think one of the biggest causes is something that some people refer to as a chemical imbalance.
Social media.
The lack of social interaction.
Peer pressure.
Kids just don't know how to deal with this stuff.
Social media or just school or family. I don't know. It's hard. It's a lot to be a human. And
A lot of it has to do with social media.
People don't understand what it is.
Kids, cell phones.
Parents, friends, relationships.
Namely parents, because
Going there is compare themselves to like other people.
interactions with other humans.
Try to bend and make ourselves perfect in the eyes of others.
I think social media is
Because whenever they try to get help, it doesn't help.
Somebody hates on you in school.
Judgmental people.
Social media and bad influences. That's just
Teachers.
Certain situations that come up.
Drugs.
the younger generations in general, I think are a lot more likely to be concerned about that comparison factor, whereas older generations tend to not care so much about.
Seeing what you have, 10, 20 Instagram influencers that their life looks so perfect and beautiful and everything, and that's just not real life. Young people thinking that that is what they want when no one can ever get it.
I think it's the pressure, like the standards put onto us by society, our parents, our friends, and our peers, and we feel like we can't meet those standards.
I would probably say this feeling of hopelessness, that the world is just so screwed up right now and we really can't do anything about it, and it's hard feeling like there's so much that we want to do but so much that we can't accomplish at the same time.
I know many people who are watching this video might have a mental issue or problem, however you may want to say it, that they don't know how to deal with. If you are having any suicidal thoughts, or if you just would need emotional support, call 1-800-273-8255, which is the National Suicide Hotline number for the US. Please don't wait. Make sure you get the help that you need.